the Solo One Sci-Fi Podcast.
Well, hello, this is episode 214 of the Solo One Sci-Fi Podcast. I'm Michael Ball. I'm not joined by Martin at this time because Martin is busy doing all sorts of things. He's doing YouTube stuff, he's making sort of movies. I think we talked about it in the last episode. But luckily, Malcolm is with me this week, or this time. So it's good to see that he's available and talking about a film that we both like. So, first of all, how are you, Malcolm?
I'm all good.
What's been happening at your end? Anything interesting to report to the world?
I don't think so. Not really. It's not been a lot of sci-fi stuff going. I've rewatched some Punisher, rewatched a little bit of True Blood. That's about it, really.
Yeah, I'm rewatching Andor season 1 before the new season starts, and I'm enjoying it. It's one of those shows that I don't know why, but a rewatch it's better. It's the thing is about long-term franchises, at least for me, is that sometimes you can have very high expectations as to what you think is going to be actually shown in a series, and if it doesn't quite fit in with your preconceptions about what it should have, then it can be disappointing. But Andor, for me, the first season, I always thought the pacing was a bit too slow. I still do. I think that they could have cut it down a bit, but I do like it, and I do. I've just finished the episode where they get out of the prison, and then it's the last 2 episodes, and then it's sort of obviously will continue the next season. So I'm enjoying that. So sci-fi news, there's been a few things. They had the other day the red carpet of the new Doctor Who season 2 with some of the actors involved with that. Of course, we don't know what it was actually in the episode because they're not releasing that, but I don't know. I just thought I saw some of the pictures of Shooty. He looked slightly uncomfortable. I don't know what it was. He looked like he's just. I know it's just me perceiving it because of all the stuff we're hearing online, but I just got the impression like, oh god, he just wants to get this done and fuck off basically to LA. So I don't know whether that's just me kind of being perceiving that from all the stuff that we've seen online about what's been going on. Yeah, any sci-fi news? Anything you want to tell us your end? Anything that's
not really. I've tried to avoid looking at anything Doctor Who-ish. The trailer for me again, it doesn't look very good.
No.
I'm tired of saying, to people online, it doesn't look very good, and then immediately they scream, "Oh, what? Because he's black? Because he's gay?" And
nothing about that. No,
it's got nothing to do with that. It's just the stories are not good. I think Chuty's a great actor. He was brilliant in Sex Education and a couple of other things I've seen him in. He was absolutely fucking stunning in them. But yeah,
but you
can't be asked.
You said before, though, you thought of him as being badly written for in Doctor Who, which I agree.
I think so.
But do you think I think you said this before that you think he's actually as an actor playing the Doctor, you're fine with it?
I think he would. I don't like the way that he is portraying the Doctor. The
That's
same with
right.
Jodie Whittaker.
I remember you saying that.
I wasn't a fan of the gender swap. I really wasn't. I just thought it was a silly gimmick. There were other ways to bring a female Time Lord in her own series that could have been this great shining light for young girls. As my daughter said to me, I think I've mentioned before, as my daughter said to me, "Dad, I don't want great male role models played by women. I want female role models." And they could have easily done that. They could have done that, no problem at all. But they decided to go gimmick. But other than that, it was mostly the way Jodie Whittaker did it, the way she approached the role, the way she played the role that did my head in. And it's the same with Ncuti Gatwa. It's the way that the Doctor is being portrayed. Just isn't for me, really. He's not. It's not the same character. I understand that the various Doctors all change slightly, but the fundamental core being of the Doctor has never changed, and yet now it has, and that's what bugs me.
Do you think the actors, though, although they tried their best, they just didn't quite evaluate how to play it through perhaps lack of knowledge of the actual show about how other actors have played it, or do you think it's more?
Yeah, I mean, they all kind of approach it their own way, sort of thing. But I think where Chuti's concerned with the whole massive camp crying every 2 minutes, I don't think that's so much his decision as RTD's.
And BBC.
But I'd say the two of them probably agreed it together. He would have turned up to an audition, portrayed it a certain way, and got the part. I mean, the last person that I thought actually portrayed the Doctor, to be fair, was Christopher Eccleston. I know David Tennant is much loved, and I think he was great. I just think he was a different character. He was too different than everybody that come before. Still brilliant, still very good, but he just, to me, he still wasn't like the Doctor that we'd known. Whereas Christopher Eccleston was.
I really liked him when he came along. In that it's 20 years now. 20 years since it started with Eccleston, and I mean, the only sad fact is that he only got one season or one series.
Well,
but I really enjoyed his series. I thought he was very good.
His Big Finish is being released soon.
Yeah, I heard he's back with Billy Piper. Well, that's good. He's got to come back to that.
Honestly, I'm not a fan of the audio format.
I'm not either.
I can't
get into it.
I've sat listening to them, and it's just nothing's described. You don't know where they are. You don't know what they're doing. It's all dialogue, and it's all kind of like there's oh my god, what's that? I don't know. Oh no, it's coming at us. Run! And you've got no idea what's going on. And I've had people say to me, "Oh, that's where you use your imagination." No, it's not. Have you ever read a book? Stephen King is like a genius at something, because he describes everything. He gives your brain something,
and then you get the mind's eye through the description. Yeah. It's like the catalyst for your. So as you say, I agree about that. I mean, I think that apparently they're very good, the Big Finish things. I think I've heard one years ago and it was okay, but I never got into it. But as you say, the same as a book will describe something, then you make your mind say.
Yeah, Blake Seven did kind of the early ones they did, the Liberator Chronicles, would be like one person narrating, and then they would have another cast member did a couple of scenes with them, of dialogue, and then maybe a guest person. And those are quite good because they're very descriptive. It's more narrated. But then they came up with the full cast audios, which are the same as the Doctor Who ones. They don't really describe what's going on.
Same way of doing it.
It's all just sound effects and dialogue, and unfortunately, I know people love them, and good luck to them.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. It's just not for me or just
I will kind of look into the Christopher Eccleston one, just the first one, just to see how it goes. But
it will be interesting after all this time, 20 years.
I assume, like most of them, when it's first released, one thing that really bugs me is you pay like 30 odd quid for a 40-minute story. That really gets.
Is it that expensive? Really? Wow.
They are pricey. They come down when they do sales and stuff like that, and loads of them are on Spotify for free.
Okay.
To go on, but yeah, they do. They are pricey when they come out.
Yeah, I find that surprising because it's not even. I suppose it's for the hiring of the actors to do the voices. That's probably where a lot of the money.
Yeah, but I mean, a lot of them have that are doing it a lot have the recording equipment in their 1 second. They have it in their room with them.
Yeah.
Just give me 1 second.
No worries.
As I said, work.
Okay. Yeah, no worries. Yeah, well, why are you sorting that out? I agree that it is an interesting factor, and of course, most people these days they can you could do it at home with your own PC. You can easily record something with a mic and save it as a high quality MP3 or a WAV file and send it to whoever's actually doing it and uploading it. I mean, it was the same thing during the lockdown, whereas a lot of people were still doing work from their own homes with their own equipment, or actually people were actually sending equipment for them to do stuff and maintain social distancing. So it is possible. There are certain ways.
Yeah, so I have seen like Peter Davison like in a little cupboard where he's got the setup, and I think Colin Baker as well posted pictures of his setup in his house.
Yeah.
So the overheads for these things can't be that high for them to charge what they're charging.
Yeah.
Not really. I always find that in Britain we get shafted like that. Anyway, you look at something like one of our TV series comes out, like Red Dwarf. You'll pay, when it very, very first came out, you would have paid £24 for 6 episodes of season 1.
Yeah.
And then you would have looked next to it and, oh, look, there's Star Trek The Next Generation, which is 26 episodes for £24. And it's just really,
Actually, it's interesting. I just thought, wouldn't it have been interesting to have like a Big Finish version of Red Dwarf? Audio comedy.
Yeah, I'm not entirely.
I don't think they've ever done it, but I just think that might be a very interesting way of doing it.
Yeah, they did. The one that I much wanted to get, although it's not original cast, was their Sapphire and Steel stories. But they weren't on there for long.
And,
Then they lost the rights, and now I think the last time I saw a set of CDs on eBay, they were like 260 quid.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
I think, yeah.
I mean, it is certainly interesting how some of these things are adapted And it's interesting because Saffron still had this sort of surreal, slightly Twilight Zone-y kind of out there sort of thing that I remember. I have to say, I've not seen it for a long time.
It's one of the worst. It's one of the worst unresolved cliffhangers, I think, of any TV show for me. I don't mean worse than it was bad. I mean, as in it hits hard that we never got to find out how they got out of it.
Well, I'm still going through Blake 7. I'm up to season 4 now. I'm getting there now. And of course, I'm still remembering that infamous last episode when I was about 10. And it's coming up, and I can't wait. I will want to talk about it when I get there because I've now seen most of it now. Marty said he didn't like the 4th season very much. It's been okay so far. I was surprised.
I mean, there's bits to not like and bits to like.
Yeah, but you get that in every series. And Callie was killed off at the end of season 3, which I was very. So she sort of like that's very.
Which is so she should have been originally when some of the episodes for season 4 were written. It should have been her. So
why did she leave?
She just didn't want to do it anymore.
Oh, she just got fed up with it. Okay.
You'll get to an episode called Animals, where Dana meets some scientist.
Yeah.
And you start to think to yourself, well, the timeline to this is fucked. And all that, and it's because the episode was written with Callie in mind, which would have made more sense. Because as it is now, this scientist, you get the general impression that this scientist was after Dana when she was about 5 years old or something. It just doesn't fit the timeline.
Yeah.
It's like a massive pedo.
Okay.
Yeah. You'll get it when you get to it. And Animals is arguably the worst episode of the entire 52.
All right, I don't think. Okay, I'll keep that in mind. But it's only is it 12 episodes per season, something like that? It's not many, is it?
Yeah, 13.
13. So yeah, so that's okay. All right. So before we go to our focus of the week, I think that's pretty much it, isn't it? News wise.
Yeah, there's nothing coming up. Last of Us comes up soon. I found out from my quiz buddy in the pub last night. His girlfriend's friend apparently wrote season 2 of The Last of Us. No, I've looked it up. There's 3 writers for season 2. One of them's a woman, and I think she's like a story editor and has only written 1 episode, but she did write a lot of the computer game. So I need when Serena's be with the quiz next week, I'll try and pin her down and say like, oh, how much of it did this woman actually write? You know,
because I'm re-watching season 1 at the moment for season 2. So because it's been a big gap, it's been like 2 or 3 years since the first season. So it's long enough that you need to see it again. And this is the major problem. I mean, it's like Strange New Worlds. Everyone is expecting it to be released soon, and it's being put back. And people are, I've heard things like they're either doing reshoots, and it's kind of like it's been a long time. I think that was 2023 as well. So it's like, a season you get like a 2-year gap for a cliffhanger, which is a bit long.
Yeah. I mean, it's why I never watched season 3 of like Westworld. There was 2 complete years until the season 3
I need to watch that one.
I watched the first episode. I watched the first episode of season 3, and I couldn't remember what the fuck had happened in the last one.
This is the problem, yeah.
And then I couldn't be asked to go back and watch it again.
So in some ways, it's better to wait until the whole series is actually finished and then watch it, because then you don't have these big gaps.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't know why to do that.
This real actually Serena's friend that had writings of The Last of Us. I might say to Serena, if you speak to her, do ask her if she fancies being interviewed on a podcast.
Oh, yeah.
It's always good fun.
Yeah.
Particularly if we like the series, it'd be nice to have her on.
I'm sure it'd be good. I mean, I like the first season a lot. So I think that, I mean, we do occasionally have some people out there in media, and it's always nice to share their perspectives and stuff. So, if you hear anything about it, let me know, and hopefully we can sort something out. Nice. Brilliant. All right, well, I think that's pretty much it. So let's go into our focus of the week. We've got a good horror movie from the 80s. This is another one. Here we go.
It's the Solar Sci-Fi Focus of the Week.
Right, okay, so we are reviewing An American Werewolf in London, which I think was made in 1981, I think it was. It featured Jenny Agutter. I'm just getting all the information up as we start talking about it. And it was obviously a werewolf film, which was set in contemporary UK. And it featured 2 American backpackers who are in Yorkshire, I think it was. And they were just literally sort of checking out Europe and they end up in the Slaughtered Lamb pub, where because they hear some strange sounds outside, and the people who are in the pub are a bit odd and a bit quirky, and stay off the moors, lads, and it sort of goes on from there. So before we go into a deep analysis, first impressions, what did you think about this film? What did you like about it?
I loved it. I would have seen. So it came out in '81.
Yeah.
So I would have seen it either on home video,
I did.
or its very, very first broadcast on TV, which, as near as I can see from Googling, was 1985. I think, but I might be wrong. That's as near as I can find from Google back. 1985 on BBC. That would have made me 1985. What were we then? 12, something
13,
like that. So
13,
somewhere between. Yeah. So I would have seen it somewhere between 9 and 13. I would have watched it.
Yeah.
I loved it.
I watched it. I think what I liked about it was that it had a.
It was fantastic.
It had a good mix of comedy, and it's actually the actual looking at the information it's referred to in genre as buddy horror, buddy comedy, dark comedy. It's got all these different kind of things, and it mixed it all together very, very well. I like all the actors involved with it. Obviously, Jenny Agutter, I was familiar with things like Logan's Run. So David Norton was the one who played David Kessler. Jenny Agutter played Alex Price, and then you've got some other characters there. And also we have Rick Mayall in one of his, I think it was his very first film role as one of the guys who was Slaughtered Lamb, and he looks very fresh-faced.
There is a story behind how he got that role that's quite funny, and unfortunately, I cannot remember what it is, and I couldn't find it in my quick remembering we were doing this Google whacking to do it. There was some reason why John Landis wanted him to do it.
Okay,
but I can't remember. I'll have to look it up and see if I can remember, see if I can find out exactly what it was. But I mean, it was right from the very opening of it. That bit, first off, they go into the Beware the Wolf pub, and most of the films you see on TV around that time, all American. So it was interesting to see not just anything set in the UK tended to be set in London. So it was quite nice to see something set in Yorkshire.
Yes,
basically an area where us Londoners don't really know.
Northerners, these Northerners, they're not being Americans. I don't know.
But it was that whole kind of when they walk in the pub and everybody just looks at them. And what's the Pentagon? And there's just silence and all that. But then they go out onto the moor, and just the horror films by and large are mostly funny as fuck. Yeah. It doesn't matter how scary they try to make a horror film; they are always
inadvertently.
Hilarious.
You mean inadvertently?
Yeah, of course they are. There's never anything scary about them. But the atmosphere when they're walking on the moors and you hear that, and he's like, "Geez, what the fuck is that?"
It's a coyote. It's a coyote. They don't have coyotes in England.
Yeah, that whole meeting bit right up until the point where just suddenly from out of nowhere, bam, and the guy's gone and all that, and then just that whole setup was just. When I was watching, I was thinking, yeah, this is something fucking special. And then obviously you get to the werewolf transformation scene, which
this is it.
The thing is arguably one of the best special effects scenes ever done.
Of course, it was practical. I always remember this one. And the other one I associate with these sort of effects was Manimal, because that had some pretty good effects as well. I mean, that was made at a similar time, about 5 years later. But this whole transformation, practical effects, was done so incredibly well. When he's
the hydraulics forcing the jaw.
Yeah, and the face actually starts to the whole of the front of the face extends out. This is on your screenshot behind you, and it was really, oh god. I mean, also the three I remember from the 80s were this one, Manimal, and this one was a slow transformation, but it was also, and that was The Fly. I love The Fly, where his face was slowly disintegrating, and the way they did that was just so no CGI, no sort of blurry. It looked real. It felt very kind of organic and very, very real. And I loved it for it, and I think that's what stood out for it. Really, was the transformation effects. I also liked. Go on.
I was reading an interview with a guy, and I can't for the life of me think who did it. The guy who did the transformation, the special effects genius, who come up with it, and he was so pissed off because he put so much time and so much effort into doing this for what amounted to John Landis made it like a I don't know what it was, a 7-second clip of the face going, and he was really fucking livid.
Really? It was so quick.
I'd been cut down and then he said like, he never changed his mind until he was at the premiere watching it, and when that transformation came, people were out of their seats cheering, and that's when he thought, okay, yeah, now
I think it was great. I don't know. I mean, I think it worked as it was. The time he might have been quick. I think it was longer than 7 seconds. I think it's more like 30 seconds or something. But it was long enough that it had and also there was playing music in the flat with the girlfriend's flat and Alex's flat, and he was going Jesus, and he was screaming, and then of course you just see him and it was very, very, very cleverly done. Another factor I liked was the friend Jack, who becomes the undead. He was attacked by a werewolf, but the werewolf lineage continues through David's taking it over, and you see him slowly decay in the movie. And I like that.
Which really upset his mum, apparently.
Really?
Apparently so, yeah. His mum was muchly traumatized after watching the film and seeing her son basically decay on screen. She was not pleased with it.
Great makeup effects again. It wasn't Stan Winston, obviously, because that's an American guy, isn't it? But whoever did the UK version, it was, well, UK as in where it was made.
Yeah, I mean, it's like flashing skin and everything. It was just,
yeah, you saw like where the neck was, and then of course eventually he becomes like a skeleton, doesn't he? You see him about 3 or 4 times in the movie. I liked him as well. I like the actor. I mean, the actor has been in lots of other things. He appeared in Frasier and all sorts of stuff.
Oh, Frasier.
He was in Frasier, wasn't he? He was the one with the wheelchair. Yeah, in the wheelchair, who was following Frasier around. That was a funny episode. Other actors, of course, Brian Glover, who's been in lots of movies, Alien, Doctor Who. I liked him as well. The Dark player, David Scholarfield, he was good. Who else was in there? Rick Melville, as he talked about as well. So it had a good cast. And it's funny because I know that they made I don't know if it's a direct link, but they also made an American Werewolf in Paris, which I never saw.
So
I never saw
seen it years ago. It's not very good. The basic gist of that is that David and Alex have a daughter.
Oh,
Alex has, obviously because David's dead, Alex has gone to
the daughter,
Paris with her thing. I don't think she's in the film because it's so long since I've seen it, but the daughter basically goes wild because she's got werewolf in her, kills Alex. So, and that might have been done off screen because I'm fairly certain Jenny Agutter's not in the film.
Right.
And then the dad is basically trying to work on a serum to prevent her changing into a werewolf, which eventually goes wrong, but it is a serum that enables werewolves to change whenever they want. So it doesn't stop her. It just means they don't have to wait for the full moon anymore. And there's kind of in Paris, there's a cabal of werewolves as well that she becomes part of. It's so long since I've seen it, but that's the general gist of it.
I didn't know it was linked, actually. I just knew that there was one in Paris, but I didn't know there was a direct lineage in correlation with the first film into this. It reminds me of the second Fly movie, going back to the Fly, when we had Martin Brundle, didn't we? We had the son. You know, it sounds like a similar premise where the first whatever's happened has died, but the partner has been pregnant, and so it's continued in the lineage. Although it's
I've not seen that one for years, or as many times as the first one. But if I remember on that, he thinks the scientists are helping him not change into a fly, whereas they're forcing him to change into one.
Yeah, he has
a friendly dog, a dog friend that they torture and kill. And I remember the closing scene is he's basically the scientist. He's got him down the
scientist
hole.
Is transferred. Yeah. It's not a patch in the first one, but the second Fly movie is worth a watch. And it's even the original Fly with Vincent Price that had 2 spin-offs. It's a lot of these films, monster films, have lots of sequels which are normally hardly ever remembered or referred to. But I do think that the first one is a very good film. It was interesting because I was reading about this morning that You remember the guy on the underground train, the one that gets he ends up on the escalator, and we see
Yeah.
that actor played Bib Fortuna in Return of the Jedi, which I thought was
Okay.
interesting. So he doesn't look anything like he did as Bib Fortuna in Return of the Jedi, but I thought that was a nice little link. And we also have Frank Oz in this, who of course was he did a Yoda, and of course he did the Muppets. He was the guy, the ambassador, the American ambassador in the film as well, when they're trying to talk about getting David back to the US, and there was all sorts of stuff. So there was quite a lot of famous people in this movie, and I do think that. I mean, do you think because it's obviously 40 years old now, more than that? Do you think it still stands up well? Do you think it still holds itself well?
Yeah, 100%. The as I say, the atmospheric scene at the beginning is great. The jump scare, the bit with the zombie. I remember
that was weird.
When the guy comes crashing through the window again. I remember creasing up. I could not stop laughing at that scene. That was so funny. But as you say, it's the reaction of the people that he's killed when they meet him, because they're stuck in limbo.
Oh yeah, that's right.
They're like the stoic businessman who's all like, "Well, I've done it. How do you feel?" And then you got the couple. Oh, hello.
And they're watching a porn movie. They're in an adult theatre. Yeah. They're in an adult theatre, and she's going, and all this groaning on the. That is very surreal. Only in the UK would do that.
When he gets killed at the end.
Yeah,
when he gets killed at the end, it was like, what? I was rooting for him being cured. It was quite good that didn't happen.
But it's interesting how they did mix a lot of comedy with this. It's one of those films where it kind of ticks all the boxes as to what you'd want in a movie. You've got the horror side. I mean, I don't know, some of the comedy is maybe it's inadvertently funny, or whether do you think that most of the comedy was actually made in the way that it was wanted to be perceived as being funny rather than inadvertently funny? I think it was. What do you think?
I think they intended it with this. I think they 100% intended to make it a little bit tongue-in-cheek, because I mean, John Landis is too good a director to know that to not know that horror films are very rarely scary. You can't. There's nothing genius about somebody jumping out. Jump scares just don't do it. They're not. That's why I don't like the remake of It. I mean, it's okay, but his Pennywise, a guy running fast at the camera going, is nowhere near as sinister and scary as Tim Curry's performance of Pennywise in the original 1980s.
I've seen the original.
Masterclass.
I've seen the original. I've not seen the remake. I've not seen the remake. It's funny, but I mean, most remakes do work.
Yeah, on YouTube you can get a side by side of when Georgie first goes up to the drain and he's like, "Come on," and you get kind of Tim Curry's. Then after they play Skarsgård, whichever his name is, I can't remember what his first name is. Skarsgård. You get his version, and you'll see that Tim Curry's is fucking hell, whereas the other guy, the new guy, is just like, and all that. What it was is, with his guy, you would have just walked away. There's no way you would have reached your hand into the drain with that thing. Whereas Tim Curry's, he's a clown. He entices him in. Come on, Georgie. Now I know your name, and all this kind of stuff. And you can see why Georgie put his arm in the drain to get his boat back. Whereas the other guy, you didn't, because he didn't have that I'm a clown persona to drag him in and all that. Tim Curry was just so much better at it.
So it makes me wonder whether if they not did a sequel, if they remade the original American Werewolf in London, whether it'd be any good. Whether they.
Well, they'd CGI the wolf, so that'd fuck it up straight away.
That's what I'm thinking.
CGI's nowhere near good enough. The only time I've ever seen, I mean, we've seen hundreds of werewolf transformations over the years. The ones in Underworld, the Kate Beckinsale films are quite good. The only one I've actually seen where I actually thought fucking wow is a TV series called Hemlock Grove. It's on Netflix. Right. And the guy in that, when he changes into a werewolf, he's all kind of like ready for it. And then he just literally explodes. The wolf just explodes out of his human skin. Right. And then he eats the skin that's on the floor. Okay. And then he walks off. And he's still a wolf covered in the blood, where he's literally exploded out of the guy. And if I remember rightly, they never show you how he changes back. They never show you the human bursting out of the wolf or anything. I think they skipped that part. But that was the first, since 1980s American with London. That was the first time I see a wolf transformation where I thought, fucking yes, there's a guy who knows what he's doing.
There was another contemporary werewolf movie made around the same time, which featured Robert Picardo, which was called The Howling. Did you ever see that one? Yeah, I didn't think that was that good.
I don't think I've seen the first one or the third one, but I've only ever seen one of them. I know they made about 162 of them.
I didn't know that.
You know,
I just knew the original one. They made lots of sequels of that as well. Yeah. That's the problem, isn't it? I mean, how they keep sort of.
It's 1980s, the era of straight to video.
Yeah, but I like a lot of movies from this era. The 80s just was a great era for so many different.
Yeah, I mean, I thought I'd seen the first one, but I asked my cousin a while back when it was on, when we were talking about it on Facebook, and I said, "Is that the one with the kid in the wheelchair?" And he said, "I don't know." He goes, "I can't remember which one because that's the one I've seen. There's a kid in a wheelchair in it." But
yeah, I just remember Robert Picardo was in The Howling. I didn't think it was as good as American Werewolf in London. I think it was all right. It's one of those things that. That era in the 80s, that's when you started to have more of the contemporary werewolf sort of movies. Whereas in the past, it was, I don't know, it used to be set more in the past, didn't it? I think so. That's why
there's another great recent TV series called Bitten, which is based on a series of books, as most of the best series today are based on books. But that's with the absolutely beautiful Laura Vandervoort, who you'll know from V and Smallville. And something else, the remake of V. She played the daughter in that.
Okay.
But yeah, so in that the werewolves in that they're so secretive that they kill anyone who finds out that they're werewolves.
Right.
So she's like at university. You find this out through flashbacks. She's in at university and she meets a guy and she likes him, and she ends up at his house and she accidentally sees his uncle or something change into a wolf out in the field, and the uncle sees her and tells the other guy that he's got to kill her. So in order to, rather than kill her, he tries to turn her. Now, in this particular world, there are no female werewolves. It doesn't happen. Most people can't survive the process, and women never can. Yet she does. She's the first female ever to survive it.
What is it called? What's this series called again?
It's called Bitten.
Bitten.
It's called Bitten. It was on Netflix. I don't think it is now. But yeah, it's 100% worth a look. There was 2 or 3 series. It was well worth a look.
Is it quite recent now?
Within the last, I don't know how old the books are, but the TV series within the last sort of 8 years, maybe. I know time flies.
Okay, I'll try. I might be up for that. Sounds quite good to me.
And it's like, and with this, I think they can change whenever they want. Most of them try to avoid it, but they have to change at least once a month. That they can't not, they can't not.
So with the moon cycle, you mean?
Yeah, so they're all trying to integrate into normal society life, but they have to change and hunt at least once a month, something like that. It's been a little while since I've seen it. But
it sounds like it's funny. Both you and Martin often sort of tell me about shows I've never even heard about. So it's good to sort of check out some of these new shows. I'm always so busy, but at some point I'm going to check out a lot of these shows that you both talk about, and I think that'd be definitely something which sounds good. So I suppose it's time to sort of first of all ask, would you put this in your collection?
Absolutely. I'm pretty sure I had it on VHS for years.
I had it on VHS. I've had it on different formats over the years. So, and it's just one of those films that just stands out. Obviously, I would have it in my collection as well, and I do have a copy of it. So what would you rate it out of 10? It's probably quite high, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I'm going to go a good 9.
Yeah, 9 as well.
A good 9.
9,
There's
definitely.
Quite a funny quote from Jenny Agutter about the infamous shower scene, where she said in an interview, the number of crew working on the film trebled the minute I stripped off that shower scene. She said, I stripped off, turned around, and suddenly there's like 4 times as many people just standing around busying themselves doing stuff, watching the odd shower.
Just all like looking around like, oh look.
When she said it was it was funny when she said it years ago. Nowadays it would be like, oh well, let's start rounding them people up and have them arrested.
This is it. It's like all the Doctor Who stuff from when they made that in 2000s and stuff. It's a lot of these old movies and things that people used to do stuff, and you just can't do it now. It's all so serious. It's all so everyone's so easy to offend, and I don't know. It always makes me think that there's a bit less fun in the world now with things like that, because it's just a bit of cheeky humor, you know. I mean, Jenny Agutow's an attractive woman, and especially back then, and you know, she does strip off in these movies. She stripped off in Logan's Run as well, and you know, she doesn't mind if she, you know. But as you say, it was back in the 80s. It was a whole different era, which is a strange one. All right, Malcolm, I think that's pretty much it. I don't know when we're next back. I might do another fortnight one. Any ideas what you want to do in? Oh, I tell you what, you wanted to review. Is it Armageddon?
Armageddon, yeah.
Shall
Yeah,
I?
yeah, yeah.
Maybe. I don't think Martin's going to be back, so let's in 2 weeks' time. Do you want to do that with me? We could do that.
So so I'm off.
Are you
It's
around, or
Tuesday the
what's happening with
15th.
you?
I'm doing no, I'm 100% off then.
Okay. So obviously we're talking a bit about behind the scenes, but we'll just talk about when to arrange that. Yeah, all right. I'll give that a rewatch. I did see it a long time ago. I did like it. And I think what we'll do at the end of this episode, we'll do what we've been doing the last couple of weeks and get that AI to review our review of, because it's quite fun. I
It is
like
fun.
that. It's a bit odd, but I kind of find it kind of, I don't know. It's just interesting how it works out what we're talking about and how we reviewed it and how they think about our review. I don't know. I just find it interesting. All right, Malcolm, thank you very much. Have a good couple of weeks, and we'll see you in 2 weeks on the Solar One Sci-Fi Podcast. Live long and prosper.
Live long and prosper.
Okay, so welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take listener-provided audio and pull out all the most interesting parts.
Yeah, we kind of give you a shortcut to being in the know about what they talked about.
Right, so today we're diving into a segment from the Solo One Sci-Fi Podcast.
These guys, Michael B. and Malcolm, they talk about all things sci-fi news movies, TV shows, books.
That's right, and in this particular segment you sent us, they talk about a couple of big things.
First, you got some reactions to the latest Doctor Who news and trailers.
And then a really in-depth look at the movie An American Werewolf in London.
Like a full-on review.
So whether you're a huge sci-fi fan or just curious about these pop culture touchstones, we're going to break it all down for you.
In a way that hopefully is clear and engaging.
Absolutely. All right, so let's jump right in, starting with the Doctor Who talk.
Yeah, so right off the bat, Michael and Malcolm, they start talking about the new season.
And the trailers that had just come out.
And their casting of Nikudigawa as the Doctor.
And right away, you can hear they've got some pretty strong and, differing opinions.
Yeah, and what I found really interesting is how they address the fan reaction right away.
Oh, yeah.
Because, you know, online especially, things can get pretty heated with these big franchises.
For sure. Especially Doctor Who. People have very strong opinions.
Right. And sometimes those conversations can veer into, you know, issues of race or sexual orientation.
Which I think they were both sort of anticipating.
Yeah. And they were both very clear that, their opinions were based purely on what they were seeing and hearing in the trailers.
On the writing and on Nkudigatwa's initial portrayal.
Exactly. It wasn't about any of those other factors.
And Malcolm was pretty upfront about not liking the trailer.
Yeah. He even straight up said it doesn't look very good.
Which, is a pretty bold statement.
Yeah, and you can tell he was kind of frustrated by the assumption that his criticism was, rooted in Nkudigatwa being black.
Right.
Because they were both adamant that it was about the storytelling and the core of the character.
And that's where it gets really interesting, because they then go into their history with the show.
Yeah, and you start to see how their different experiences with past Doctors kind of inform their opinions on the new one.
Like Malcolm admitted he wasn't a fan of Jodie Whittaker being the Doctor.
He actually said he saw it as a gimmick.
And would have preferred they created new female characters instead.
Which is a whole other debate.
Totally. How do you balance respecting the past of a show with innovating and reaching new audiences?
It's tricky, and it's something these long-running franchises constantly grapple with.
Because, viewers have such deeply personal connections to these iconic characters.
Exactly. And any change, even if it's well-intentioned, can be met with resistance.
If it feels like it alters the fundamental essence of that character.
Right. And despite their differing views on the 13th Doctor, they both agreed on one thing.
That until recently, the fundamental core being of the Doctor has never changed.
Which I think suggests that they feel like something shifted recently.
For sure. And it's interesting because they actually found common ground in their appreciation for Christopher Eccleston as the 9th Doctor.
Oh, yeah. They were both big fans of his, and it just so happens to be the 20th anniversary of his debut.
Oh, wow.
Malcolm even said that he felt like Eccleston was the last one to truly nail the Doctor's essence.
Huh. Interesting.
And he even saw David Tennant as a different character despite his massive popularity.
Which really makes you think about how each actor kind of shapes our understanding and connection to these roles.
For sure, it's a testament to their talent.
Yeah.
And, it highlights the tightrope walk that showrunners have to do.
With these established properties, like every decision is scrutinized.
Every casting choice, every narrative choice is viewed through decades of history.
And super strong fan expectations.
It's a constant balancing act of honoring the past and forging a new path.
Absolutely. All right, so then they shift gears completely.
Yeah, they move on from the TV show to talk about the Doctor Who audio dramas.
From Big Finish.
And it was clear that neither of them are huge fans.
They weren't really feeling it.
But what's interesting is their reasoning, because it wasn't just a blanket dismissal of audio dramas.
Right. It was specifically about these Doctor Who productions and how they felt they lacked that descriptive storytelling that you find in a book.
Right.
They were saying that without the visuals or the really rich narration, it's harder to get immersed in the story.
And Michael made a great point about Stephen King's writing.
Oh, yeah. He was saying how King's so descriptive that you can just picture everything so vividly in your mind.
Right.
And he felt like that was missing in the audio format.
Michael actually gave this hilarious example. He was like, "Oh no, what's that sound? I don't know. Oh no, it's coming closer. Run."
Yeah. And his point was without any context, it's just not that compelling.
It puts too much pressure on the listener to use their imagination.
Especially when you compare it to the really detailed worlds that you find in the Doctor Who novels.
Right.
And they also brought up the issue of cost because these audio dramas can get pretty expensive.
Although some are available on Spotify.
Which makes you think about, how we value different forms of media.
Right.
And what expectations fans have for their money. Absolutely.
How much immersion do you get for your buck?
Totally. Okay, so they touched briefly on the possibility of a Red Dwarf audio drama.
Yeah, but Malcolm didn't seem too keen on it.
Maybe because of their whole take on the Doctor Who ones.
Right.
And then they moved on to something I think a lot of TV viewers can relate to.
The long waits between seasons and the struggle to resolve cliffhangers effectively.
And they specifically mentioned Strange New Worlds and Westworld.
Yeah, it's tough when you lose that momentum, especially nowadays with streaming and longer production timelines.
People can be waiting years between seasons.
And it really affects their engagement with the story.
Right. You forget what even happened.
Exactly. And there's a real risk of losing viewers when the narrative thread isn't consistently maintained.
For sure. And then just before they moved on to the main event, they mentioned a potential interview.
With one of the writers for the second season of The Last of Us.
Which is very exciting for fans of that show.
Yeah. Okay, so enough sci-fi news. Let's get to the real meat of this deep dive.
An American Werewolf in London review.
This 1981 classic.
Starring Jenny Agutter, David Naughton.
And the one and only Rick Mayall.
Oh, man, what a legend.
So this film is such a unique blend of genres.
Yeah, Michael and Malcolm both pointed out how it's horror buddy comedy and dark comedy all at the same time.
It's really a genre bender.
Yeah, and it was so groundbreaking for its time to mix genuine scares with laugh-out-loud moments.
It challenged what a horror movie could be.
For sure.
And you could just hear the love in their voices when they talked about it.
They were reminiscing about when they first saw it.
Whether it was on VHS or one of those early TV broadcasts.
And they both agreed that balance of humor and terror is what really stuck with them.
Along with the amazing performances from the cast.
And it's funny because Rick Mayall had that small role as one of the locals in the Slaughtered Lamb pub.
Right.
And Michael shared this great anecdote about how John Landis specifically wanted him for that part.
Yeah.
Which just shows, Landis's eye for talent.
Absolutely.
And it also highlights the film's connection to that British comedy scene.
Oh, for sure.
Speaking of that opening scene in The Slaughtered Lamb.
It's just masterful.
The atmosphere is so thick with dread.
And those locals with their cryptic warnings to stay off the moors.
It's just so unsettling.
And then you've got that whole hilarious misunderstanding about the coyote.
What coyote?
Right. It's England.
It's such a great setup for the film's tone.
That blend of humor and impending doom.
Absolutely. It's that perfect mix of dark comedy and genuine horror.
But let's be real, the werewolf transformation scene is what everyone remembers.
Oh, yeah. Hands down.
Michael and Malcolm both called it a landmark moment in cinema history.
And it's even more impressive when you think about how it was all done with practical effects.
No CGI.
Just pure artistry and skill.
That physicality of the transformation, the bones cracking, the skin tearing.
It's still one of the most effective and influential sequences ever filmed.
I mean, even now, it's hard to watch.
Yeah, Michael specifically mentioned how they used electronic elements in the jaw to make it stretch and elongate.
Like you can see the pain in his face.
Exactly. It's that tangible quality that CGI often struggles to replicate.
That sense of real weight and consequence.
And there's this great story about the special effects artist.
Oh, yeah.
I can't remember his name.
Neither do they.
But apparently he was initially disappointed because Landis only used a small portion of the transformation in the final cut.
He felt like a lot of his hard work was going unseen.
But then the premiere happened.
And the audience went wild during that scene.
Cheers and applause.
Total vindication for his work.
It just goes to show you the power of those practical effects.
They also spend some time discussing the character of Jack,
David's friend.
who survives the attack but doesn't become a werewolf.
Right, but he doesn't exactly get off scot-free.
No, he goes through this gruesome decay as an undead being.
And the makeup effects were so realistic that they apparently traumatized Griffin Dunn's own mother.
Oh, wow.
That's how good they were.
It wasn't just about creating a monster. It was about showing the real horrifying consequences of that attack.
That slow, agonizing loss of humanity.
Super disturbing.
And, they also pointed out all the other familiar faces in the film.
Oh, yeah. Like Brian Glover, David Schofield.
Even Frank Oz has a cameo as the American ambassador.
And the guy who played Bib Fortuna in Return of the Jedi is the attacker in the subway.
It's quite the cast.
So the big question, does An American Werewolf in London still hold up after all these years?
And the answer from Michael and Malcolm was a resounding yes.
They were so enthusiastic about it.
They talked about how effective the atmosphere still is, the jump scares.
And those moments of dark comedy.
Like the dead businessman in the cinema and the couple in the adult theater.
No, bizarre.
It's just a perfect encapsulation of the film's unique appeal.
And they had this interesting discussion about the comedy in the film.
Whether it's intentional or accidental.
And they landed on it being a very deliberate choice by Landis.
Which is interesting.
They even compared it to the remake of it.
Yeah, and how Tim Curry's Pennywise had this unsettling, almost seductive quality.
That the more overtly terrifying modern version lacked.
It's all about the different flavors of horror.
Totally.
And sometimes that undercurrent of dark humor can make the scares even more impactful.
Because it catches you off guard.
Keeps you on your toes.
So naturally, this led to a discussion about a potential modern remake of An American Werewolf in London.
Which they were both hesitant about.
Because of the over-reliance on CGI these days.
Would it even be possible to capture the same magic and visceral impact as the original?
With all the advancements in CGI, there's still something so tangible and believable about practical effects in horror.
Especially when it comes to werewolves.
They talked about other werewolf films and series like Underworld,
Hemlock Grove.
which Michael actually praised for its uniquely graphic transformation.
And of course the classics like The Howling.
Each one approaches the werewolf myth and the transformation in different ways.
With varying degrees of success.
And Michael actually brought up a more recent TV series called Bitten,
Oh, yeah.
which had this interesting twist where there were no female werewolves initially.
Interesting.
He was a fan of Laura Vandervoort's performance in it.
And he mentioned how the werewolves in that show had this whole element of secrecy.
Like they had to eliminate anyone who discovered their secret.
It's always cool to see how different creators play with those established myths,
Right.
adding new layers and rules to those supernatural worlds.
So back to An American Werewolf in London.
Both Michael and Malcolm were very clear that they would have it in their personal collections.
And they gave it a solid 9 out of 10 rating.
High praise indeed.
And then they ended the review with a bit of a sobering anecdote.
About Jenny Agutter's experience filming the shower scene.
And how the number of crew members present suddenly increased.
Yeah, it was a bit of a reflection on how societal attitudes and on-set protocols have thankfully changed since the 80s.
It's a stark reminder of how far we've come in terms of respect and professionalism on set.
Absolutely. And finally, they gave a little teaser for their next deep dive.
Which is going to be on the movie Armageddon.
Oh, boy.
Sounds like they've got plenty more movie talk lined up.
Looks like we'll have to tune in.
So there you have it, our deep dive into this segment from the Solo One Sci-Fi Podcast.
We've explored their nuanced perspectives on Doctor Who, their thoughts on audio dramas.
And of course, their deep appreciation for An American Werewolf in London.
We covered their thoughts on the blend of horror and comedy and those iconic practical effects.
Hopefully you feel like you've gotten a good grasp on their discussion without having to listen to the whole thing.
Yeah, we did the listening for you, extracted all the most interesting parts.
So you can stay informed without having to invest the time yourself.
Which leaves us with a final thought for you.
Given all the advancements in CGI and digital effects,
Why do those practical effects from films like An American Werewolf in London still resonate so strongly with us today?
Is there something inherently different, something more visceral and tangible that's lost when CGI becomes the dominant tool in horror and sci-fi?
It's a question worth pondering. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.
And we'll see you next time.
Turn it up loud, feel the beat, watch